Fix my request. Hey, see if we can get it working today. Hello, everybody. YouTube, you're here first. Facebook, there you go. I feel like I'm pointing at people's in the room. Oh, Podbean, there you go. Spotify.
Now we live on Facebook.
If you're watching, please don't mind me. I will be drinking some tea.
It's tea in the cup. I can confirm. Welcome to another episode of Above Average. Welcome to another episode of Above Average Black Men. Yours truly, Chris Senior.
Chris Jr., as always, here to empower, inspire, uplift the community through some positive conversation.
Yeah.
Devin's not here today. Make sure you like, follow, subscribe. Do us a favor. He will be here shortly.
Yeah.
But we need to see more interaction from people. I think we've been getting a lot of comments live during the show. We love it. Keep it coming.
Great discussion last week. We had a great discussion last week. Our two co-hosts was out on a heart day. So
it was Valentine's Day.
So they couldn't make it, man. You know, they're on a man-made holiday for love.
Man-made holiday?
For love. So they weren't here. So, you know, we had a great discussion last week, man. I think I just served Devin. Well, anyway, so yeah, today we're going to be talking about breaking cycles. Breaking cycles.
Yeah.
And that's going to be the conversation today.
I think even more specific, you know, cycles of, you're talking about generational cycles, right? Not necessarily like individually, even though that's probably tied together.
Well, yeah, it starts with individual cycle. It starts with an individual. And the way cycles typically start is, first of all, the norm is typically distorted. And what I mean by the norm is they see what they do as being normal. So they don't see a need to change it. And it becomes a habit. It becomes habitual for them. And then they pass it on, sometimes unbeknownst, sometimes on purpose, you know, to their kids. So then it becomes generational.
Yes.
You know, and a lot of times somebody doesn't have the courage to break the cycle, or maybe don't have the wherewithal or knowledge to understand that it is a cycle. Like, for instance, you'll hear somebody say, well, my father went to jail, my grandfather went to jail, and they ain't jail. You know, that's a cycle.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's typically a cycle of bad decisions. Or you'll hear, well, my dad got divorced and now I'm divorced. You know, it's a cycle.
Do you think even people are aware of the fact sometimes that they're within a cycle? You know, whether it is I know we like to say generational curses, but yeah, like, do people even think that they're aware of that?
I don't think it's an idea of being aware. I think it's understanding that it's a cycle. I think it's like, and I'm not saying it's the same, but it's for me is the only comparison I have in my mind right now. It's like you addicted to drugs. You know you got a problem, but your desire to stop, you know, is not as strong as your desire to continue it.
Yeah.
And I think you see people, or you downplay it. I'm not addicted, and you are. You know, it's not a cycle. I can stop. I can break the cycle anytime I want to, and that's never typically the case. When I hear people say that, I know it's not true.
Well, I think sometimes, you know, people just kind of use this cycle as an excuse. You know, like almost like it's no way out. It's no hope. Like it's just, this is something that happens to me, my family. This is just how things go. I think some people just accept it at times.
Yeah, I think accept is a better word than excuse.
Yeah.
I do. I think accept is a better, because the cycle is real.
Mm-hmm.
It's real. And I do think but it's also easier for folk to say it is what it is.
Yeah.
You know, as opposed to, because see, the thing about breaking the cycle that makes it, a little more challenging is that means you got to go against the norm of your family most of the times. If that's, you know what I mean? And people just don't do that. People just don't want to do that. You know, for instance, if you come from a situation where nobody went to college,
Mm-hmm.
you know, nobody aspired to go to college. Now you want to go to college, you know. So and it happens in some families. Who do you think you are? You know, or you think you better than us? You know, that stuff comes out. So most people don't want to deal with that, so they don't do it. You know, it's like when I was working in the housing authority in Chester, and I was amazed at the amount of people, as soon as they turned 18, they got on the list to get an apartment in the projects. They never thought about leaving. That was the goal. They would start coming, yo, Mr. Pender, you know, when I'm 18 soon, man, I want to get a place. You know, that was the goal. The goal was never to break the cycle and move out.
I mean, because I think in even some of those cases, you don't know how or where to even start sometimes, you know. And I mean, you don't even know, like, what's, I guess, what you may do is considered to be bad. in some people's eyes, or like in that example.
And that's not saying about norms.
Yeah,
but that's not meant about norms. You get into norms, but because you see other people breaking it when you go to work. You see people in your community who leave and never come back. The difference is you start to call them sellouts because you're a sellout.
So that's another part.
And what that people just don't, and some people can't deal with that. And that becomes the issue, because I don't want to be known as a sellout. I don't want to be known as a person who I think I'm better than my friends, because I can't do that anymore. And then
it's even strength in numbers, I would say, in some of those situations or circumstances. Like, there's probably a pocket of people who make it out, but then it's like you got a pool of all these other people that are just like, oh, he's a sellout.
But that's why you break the cycle, because it's. And we'll get into how you break the cycle, but that's why you break the cycle. When you sit around and you say, okay, I'm third, fourth generation person living in the projects. I'm not condemning anybody living in the projects, so please don't misinterpret what I'm saying. But you sitting there saying you're fourth, fifth generation, and nobody's aspired to get out. At some point, because you leave to go to work, you see people outside of there. You know people who get out. So now it becomes a choice. Do I want to put the fight and the effort in? Because it's not always easy. And I want to make that abundantly clear. It's not easy to break the cycle. It's a lot. Because sometimes we get caught up trying to bring people with us, which creates another burden. Sometimes, especially in this generation, we worry more about what people think about it. So if I call you a sellout or you better than us, that bothers us.
But then also specifically in that example, and probably in other areas too, like I think that we celebrate it. We celebrate people who stay where they are and don't go somewhere else.
I wouldn't use the word celebrate.
No, we celebrate it.
We enable them. No, I do say that.
I'm speaking from, I guess, my generation, and even and you hear it in our music, like people talking about getting out the mud, and like if people, they do make it, they're like, oh man, I respect him because he come back, he stay on the block. Like, people celebrate that, and that's also probably, I think, what makes it hard.
I mean, and you use the term celebrate. I wouldn't use, to me, misery.
Glorify.
Glorify. And to me, misery loves company. It's easy for me to look at Devin and say, man, Devin made it, and happy that he comes back. Then it's for me to say, well, I want to put the work in and get out of here. You can leave your neighborhood and not turn your back on your neighborhood. I go back and I do the toy drive every year in North Philly. You can do that. But doesn't mean you got to stay there. And some people choose to stay there, but doesn't mean you have to become, being black doesn't mean you're attached to a certain neighborhood. And I think that's part of the problem. I think our blackness is affiliated with,
so many crazy, nonsensical things.
Yeah, but see, at some point, it's easier said than done. At some point, somebody in the family has to wake up and say, I'm going to break the generation. I'm going to break it. I'm going to break the cycle. I'm not going to continue to go to jail. I'm not going to continue to become a drug addict. I'm not going to continue to be a long line of thieves. At some point, somebody has to have it. And it takes courage, because now you're being different. Yes. You're challenging yourself. And whenever you try something new, you alienate people. It's like my father told me, every time you move up a level in sports and you look around the locker room, the faces change, because the competition gets tougher. People start to fall off. People don't want to put the work in. So it's the same way in life. Every time you move up to the next level in life, your environment is going to change. Your scenery is going to change, because everybody's not prepared to take the next step. However, there's some people who worry more about what people think than taking the next step.
Yeah, I mean, but then also just kind of thinking about cycles and people that I've known or came across, people really do look at it as no way out. Like, like they were just kind of almost destined to be in that particular situation or cycle that they're in.
I agree with half of it. I do agree that people look at it and say it's no way out. I agree with all, but I'm going to argue the second point. I think people do look at it, but I think it's foolishness to sit back and say that I'm destined to be anything, because you're not. That's just like saying, because my dad was Rod Carew, I'm destined to be, but you're not. Just because you got the last name, destiny is destiny is a matter of choice, not chance. The choices you make will continue where you end up at. And that's just the facts of life. Is when I wanted to be a better basketball player, I had to start putting up the jump shot. I just couldn't say, because I had to put the work in. You had to put the work in. You had to put the work in. In my business, I got to put the work in. I can't say I'm destined to be great. No, it takes work. It takes effort. It takes a commitment. And part of the commitment is to yourself. That's the part I think is lacking when people get caught in cycles, because they're committing to the cycle. They're committing to what's going around them and not to themselves.
Yeah. And I don't even think, even just kind of what we're talking about and how we're phrasing it.
Yeah.
because I was thinking about like our cycle. I think it's a good cycle. Like, you know what I mean? We're trying to build on top of things.
Yeah.
Of course, there's probably some negative things, like just kind of within
There
our
always will be.
personalities, right? But I think even when we talk about cycles, we always kind of look at it in that negative regard too. Like nobody's thinking like, man, what are some of the positive things within our family or from our parents that I can build upon? And then even just maybe even taking that look personally, or like, man, what are some of the negative things that I can change or potentially improve upon? It's certainly hard, I think, to kind of have that type of self-reflection, but or even like looking at people that are older than you and like being able to have that critical eye. Because again, perfect example. I find a lot of times I'm like, man, I'm like my dad. You know, I'm just like my dad. And it just almost seems just natural. Like you said this to me plenty of times. There's things you've seen me do that I've never seen or heard you talk about, and you're like, wow.
But that's the purpose. That's what I meant. How it has to be a conscious effort. And you have to be purposeful about it, and you have to start. And I'm gonna back up, and you do. But let me finish that thought first. You got to. It's a conscientious effort, and you got to be purposeful about it. You on purpose. You got to be saying, I'm gonna take the good things that I got, but the things that's not good or not good for me, I'm gonna alienate. You know, I love my dad to death. My dad always wanted us to have a better life than they had, and hence he said things to me. And when he said it, didn't make a lot of sense, but now I do see what he was talking about. You know, and there's some of those things I thought the same, man, he's being too tough. I'm never going to be like that. And then now I'm older, like, yo, that was a good thing because it taught me this, it taught me that. But there are some things that he did. I know I had to break the cycle.
Yes.
You know, my dad and I didn't have a whole lot of conversations like we're having now. You know, sit and talk different things, man. You know, it wasn't until he got dementia, you know, he got older and he came here to stay that we started having more in-depth conversations. Growing up, we just talked sports because I was good in sports. You know, and we had those firm moments when he was trying to teach me something, but it wasn't like we laugh and joke. We kind of hang out, do things. It wasn't that kind of relationship. So I wanted to make sure I had that. You know, not that he did anything wrong, but he came from a different generation. Your mom would tell you the same thing. It's things they have on their side of the family. And then she was like, okay, I don't want to bring that into my family. You know, that's not what I want to duplicate. But then there's some people who just duplicate. They just, you know, I did it because my parents did it. And I hear it all the time. That's the way I was raised. Yeah. That's what my parents did to me. That's what I learned.
Yeah. I think one thing that kind of stands out in what you just said, and like you certainly passed that down to us, is that idea of wanting the next generation to be better than the previous. You know, and making sure that you're kind of setting this up or putting this on that path to do that. I don't think a lot of people are having those conversations or that type of mindset of where, hey, I want you as my child to be better than me. I don't want you to live or be in that same situation. And therefore, a lot of times you see the same patterns or cycle continue. I think another thing that's important is just, we were talking about specifically that example of the projects.
Yeah.
A big part of it is like being around different things and putting you in a different environment. I think if you just kind of are constantly taking in one way of living and one way of doing things, you're almost kind of like locked into seeing like, all right, well, there's no other out. That's my options.
But see, that I mean, at some point in time, everybody sees an option.
Mm-hmm.
It may not, I get it. It may not be on a regular basis, but at some point in time, everybody's, because that's the world we live in. You're introduced to an option. The question is, you know, do you see it as an option? Do you see yourself being worthy of the option? And do you want to put the work in? You know, it could be you go to school and you run into some kid who kind of going through the same thing you're going through, but he's making it. You know, it could be, especially now with social media, although a lot of it's not real. But, you know, so I think everybody at some point in time reach that proverbial fork in the road where they have to make a choice. Now, what they make their choice on is differently. Some of it I do agree with you. Some people look around them and they make their choice in their environment. And there's some people who look beyond. So, okay, man, I know there's something out there better than this because I've seen it. I haven't experienced it, but I've seen people on TV. I've met people out there who, you know, so it is how you look at it. But I think a lot of times we get stuck because it's convenient and it's safe. Because, like, when when I was counseling, been a while since I did it, but one of the things that used to crack me up inside when I hear people say, well, you know, and it was the saddest thing I ever heard, but I'm going to stay here because at least here I know my misery. If I do that, I have no idea what's going to happen. At least here,
The unknown,
I know what my pain is.
Yeah.
It's like somebody that stays in a bad relationship because I'm in a relationship. I know I have a relationship, but if I lose this relationship, I don't know if I'm ever going to have another one. And so there's a lot of people like that.
I have a question. Maybe this is a little personal for us, but what would we say is one of our negative cycles or something that has been broken or that we've kind of, I would say, worked to change as a family? Would you say that we have one?
Yeah, I would say. I think from my perspective. So there may have been conversations that I have not seen or heard have been apart from my perspective. From my perspective, I think you guys are a lot more focused than we were. I think you guys have a lot more of a hustle, get your grind on. You guys like the concept to come up with this show. That's not something we would have come up with, and that's not a bad thing. But because my parents were of the generation and your mom's parents, you get a job and you work the job.
You make sure you got good insurance.
Yeah, and you get a job and you work the job. It was no, I can make money outside of here. It was no, that was, you do this straight 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. It was no talk about find something you like to do, enjoy it. That wasn't it. There was a lot of talk about finding a career. That was not the discussions we had. So like my dad was a hustler. My dad, he was a police officer, and he also had his own business on the side, which I caught the bug.
Same thing.
He had a business on the side, man. So I was like, but I got siblings who didn't catch the bug and have no interest, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with it, but have no interest in it. So for me to look at you guys now, I have 3 college graduates. All of us didn't. We all successful and all right, but all of us didn't graduate. All of us didn't go to college. So that was a cycle we broke. That became more of a talk in our house to make sure. Not only put you in the head like this is what you got to do.
Either in or you out.
Yeah, I think we do more family stuff, with you guys as adults than I've ever did with my parents. I used to go see them a lot when they were down there, but you know how we go to dinner, we take vacation, because I was purposeful about breaking it, and hopefully we'll keep it going with Mackenzie, and if you guys ever decide to have a family, we'll keep it going. So yeah, there's things, man, that I think that was not crazy, but I do think that we broke the cycle. My dad, God rest his soul, my dad liked to party, man. He had them things in the house, man, with the Manischewitz and the bushel of crabs, man, and oysters and all that stuff, man.
Crabs.
Yeah, he would do them things, man. Like growing up in North Philly before y'all town, that's what he did. So we broke that cycle.
I don't know. I think we still party.
not like that. Yeah, it's not even close to my dad's. My dad's house would be jam packed.
I'm not
pinochle and stuff like that. So I'm saying. So I think those are the things that we have broken. Mm-hmm. And then there's some other things that, we ain't gonna talk about on air, but that we have broken, man. But I think you got to be conscious of it. You got to recognize that it is something that needs to be changed, and it's not always something that's devastating or terrible. Sometimes it's subtle things like a work ethic. You got people now. You got generations of people who just, I want to collect welfare. I want to collect the check. Or I'm going to pay the lottery $50 a week for the rest of my life, is hoping I hit the mega bucks. Not thinking, well, I could take that same $50 a week. And that's $200 a month, $2,400 a year. That if I just invested it, so there's different things, but the mentality is this is how we get out. Or this the cycle. Some people think, my kid gonna be good in sports. That's my ticket out of here.
That's
so you're not people. So you're not telling your kid to get his education. So in turn, when he has his kid, unless something breaks the cycle, he's gonna be the same way. He's not pushing education. She's not pushing education. That's the kind of cycles. You see people with multiple kids and not married, and I've met people where the grandma was 45. And the mom was 30 and the daughter was 15.
Yeah.
So that's every 15 years. So the cycle, and it's probably going to continue the same way unless somebody steps up and says, I'm not going to do that. I'll be purposeful. I'm going to be intentional about breaking the cycle.
And I think, again, just even having this conversation about cycles or generational cycles and just kind of the negative things that happen within our families, I don't think we even look at it or frame it like that. I feel like a lot of times it just gets so kind of just short-sighted. Like it's just looking at me.
It's the way it is.
Yeah, like, right, this is the way it is. Or like, this is my experience. Like the example that you used of just kind of where the grandmother 45, the daughter's 30, and then great grandbaby. She's our granddaughter's 15 or whatever. But like, no, in that particular
45, 30, and 15,
which is crazy. But in that example right there, what if they never don't see anything wrong with that? You know what I mean? Like to the point that we made earlier,
and that's okay for them.
It is what it is.
That's okay too. But you also got to understand, based on that formula, also the cycle of poverty is going to get worse and worse and worse because nothing changes financially, but everything increases.
And I think that's
cost of living goes up. Right? So, but you're not changing your mindset, your financial status. So now each generation is deeper and deeper entrenched in poverty.
And that just kind of made me think about, like, man, what is really the true cost of a generational curse? You know, like, because we can even take it back even further. We're just talking about our generations, but you know, if we want to go as far back as slavery and segregation and all those different things, there's certainly factors that kind of put certain families and people within those positions. And some people almost use that as an excuse as to why, like, you know, things can't necessarily get better. You know?
Well, so slavery was designed to do that.
Mm-hmm.
It was designed to break down a group of people, you know, to lowest denominator. You know, and how do I keep them there? You keep them there by believing that's their self-worth. That's all they're worth. You keep them there by repeating the cycle. By each generation, you know, it gets easier and easier to do because that's what's being passed down. You know, that you're inferior. Yeah. You're not smart enough.
People don't even see it.
I agree.
That's like even just kind of talking about that concept of like I said, slavery and segregation. I think it's certainly kind of hindered our progress moving forward as a community, and I do think like it also has really kind of put people in a place of where we feel like we can't do anything because we still just are saying, oh, well,
victim mentality,
yes,
mindset.
Yes, like we can't do anything because these things happened in the past, and then now that's just our path moving forward. I hate that. I really hate that.
But that's also generational because you'll hear somebody say, like I'll go to the sticky point about voting. I go to the point about voting. You'll hear somebody make a comment, and I'll tie that with. Let me back up with. I believe now more than any other time in my lifetime, we are more of a society of followers.
Yes.
You know, and we're raised off of sound bites.
You get followers. They call followers on Instagram.
We don't dig deep to get facts. So you'll have a parent who says, "Man, it ain't gonna make no difference," and they've been saying around the kid all the time. So kids adopt it. It ain't gonna make a difference.
Yeah.
You know, or you gonna spend the rest of your life working. You know, get used to it, working 2 jobs. So they adopt the philosophy and they do it. You know, you're never going to be anybody because your daddy wasn't anybody. So they do it. But one of the keys is, and I think you have to realize you're an individual. Yes, until you can do something different, you are, I believe, a sum total of your environment. But at some point, you got to differentiate between the two.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I love North Philly, born and raised in North Philly. North Philly is not me. It doesn't define me. You know, it assisted the character, resilience. You know, I talk about it all the time. But yes. I don't have to walk around acting like that because I'm to prove that's where I'm from, that I still belong. And I think that's part of the problem when I talk about having the courage to break norms. We get our sense of identity screwed up.
That's actually a great point.
We think it's attached,
you
know, to a place or to a behavior or, this whole, like somebody was telling me the other day that they didn't like the term woke, you know, and they began to explain it to me. And I saw where they were coming from, you know, because the term woke, you know, makes people think that everybody was always asleep. and the way they broke it down, I never thought about it like that. You know, like suddenly we just woke up. And there's a lot of African Americans that's always been awake. You know, they just learn that just because I was born doesn't define who I am.
I don't think the work time was for us.
They just learned that hey, guess what? I can be from a place and not be like everybody in that place. Like even though that place has helped shape and mold me, it doesn't define my character. It doesn't define my integrity. And I think those are the things that people struggle with when they get caught up in cycles because, you know, it's my norm. Where everybody does it. How many times you sit down and talk to somebody, that's what everybody doing. You know, everybody getting high, everybody smoking, everybody stealing, everybody, you know, that's the first thing people say. Yeah. But at some point you got to be willing to say, okay, well, I'm not everybody. I can't do that. Like now, I say this all the time. I'm in a position where I got to be careful because I can't lose my clearances. Mm-hmm. I can't be on the news or hanging out with somebody that's selling drugs or doing stuff like that. If I do that, I don't eat anymore. who I got to find something else to do for a living.
Mm-hmm.
I love my life. So I have to be careful in making those choices. And I think, you got to say to yourself, like, okay, it's okay to be different.
Yeah.
And my last point, I'll go back to breaking the cycles. I love my dad to death, but I also saw how hard he worked. Doing physical labor, man, being a police officer and coming home painting and doing all this stuff, man. And, I saw the toll it took on his body. The time he spent away from family because he had to hustle and do all that stuff. And I appreciate it. We never knew we were poor. But that's something that I said I didn't want to do. I wanted to make sure I was able to go to ball games and coach y'all and do the things that I did, that you did, growing up. I was purposeful about that, not to repeat that cycle.
Yeah, and I think what's kind of key is like you were able to see and pinpoint the things that you didn't necessarily like, and then build upon the things that you did like. And even when we're talking about doing things generationally, like I think again we harp on or focus on so much of the negative stuff, and we don't think about like, all right, what are the things that I do want to build upon and carry over and maintain and replace some of those negative behaviors or things that are taking place in our family or throughout our family. And I think something that you mentioned and said very early on was that it's not necessarily easy to do because the people around you, even the people closest to you, like your family, start looking at you different when you start to kind of break outside of that box or break outside of that norm. And I think some people are scared to kind of go against the grain or like be a little bit different or go outside the norm. I think people have a mentality of, well, this is, like you said, this is just the way it is. That's the way my neighbor does it. That's the way my grandma did it. That's the way like everybody around me does it. So like, why would I see this as being wrong or something that needs to change? Or even thinking to myself, like, how would I change these things? When almost it's an expectation at this point,
I mean, do you have something to say?
I'm soaking it in, and I'm being honest.
I hear that. I do. I hear that.
Because I'm all for breaking generational curses, but then I try to take into account that, like, people only, like, all right, think about this. When we were working and coaching with kids and you brought those kids from Camden to Elkins Park, and how some of them never been outside of their block or neighborhood, never seen a lawn or never seen a house with a tree in front of it. If it wasn't for you being able to step in and do that, some of them would have still been in that same
But
place.
That's why you do it. But the thing about it is now they can go back and tell somebody else, there's
but what if you
world.
don't have that
There's
person that's
world.
going to take you to that place?
Yeah,
like, put you in that position to see.
But that's why somebody telling somebody is just, that's what's so good about it, because I can go back and say, I seen that. It does exist out there. I can say that. I may not be able to take them there, but I can go back to my friends and say, I've seen black people be successful. I've seen black people who came from the hood who live in the good life. You can make it real to them. You're right. Everybody won't get to make the trip, but that's why you encourage people who you do make to go back and tell people. My father instilled stuff in me that I never saw, but he painted the picture visually. And I was talking to a group of people, and we were getting to a discussion about perfect, because I said, the goal is to try to be perfect. And everybody get deep. Oh, ain't nobody perfect. And I started hearing all that. And I said, no, but then I said, let me explain something to you. First of all, and my dad used to say this to me. This I never forget. He said, you know what? Yeah, we know you're not, but you aim for perfection. Because as long as you aim for perfection and you come up short, you fall on excellence. But if you aim for excellence and you fall on short, you land on mediocrity.
No good.
I just see a bullseye where it's just like,
what I'm
no
saying,
good.
but that's so true. And because we lower the bar, so when we miss the mark, we lower.
Yeah.
Because we don't, the goal is not to be perfect. Is, to your point, using your analogy, to get close to it as you can. There's a story that my coach used to say this all the time, man, and they used to crack me up when he tells the story. He tells incoming freshmen. He said, imagine you got a barn, and you paint a target on the side of the barn. And you tell, I can hit the target. I can put this blindfold on, spin around 10 times and hit the target.
Easy money.
And spin around 10 times, shoot, hit the target. You don't hit the actual target, but you hit the barn. So the guy says, "Oh, pay me." You didn't. He said, "No, you don't understand. The barn was my target."
The bar.
I just wanted to get close. And see, we live our life like that. Like, yo, forget the bullseye. Yo, I just want to get close. And instead of saying, yo, my goal is to get as close again to the bullseye, so hopefully I land in the target. So I think that's how norms get started, man, because we settle for less. And then it becomes an expectation of that's good enough. And then it becomes my least favorite phrase. At least I'm not as bad as so and so.
Yeah. So, a question for you? Do you think that like there are instances where like I think I already know your answer, but like where some generational curses might just be too deep, like they in there, it's like no way out type thing.
Well, I wouldn't say they're too deep, but I think there's some that you really need help with that you can't do by yourself. Like for instance, if it's molestation is deep. Because most people hide it because they're ashamed of it, so they never get help. But now they got a problem being intimate. Now I got a problem with being close to somebody. Now I got a problem trusting somebody. So now it comes out, you get married and you bring that into your relationship and the other person don't know, and then the manifestation of it starts to come out. You need help. That's not something you're going to sit down one day and do 5 Hail Marys and spin around, and all of a sudden you need help. So and you can't break it unless you have help. You need to have the courage to explain to your spouse, what's going on. It's not like I don't like you. I'm just struggling with this. So that stuff like that is hard, man. People that's raped and people that's abused, that's hard. That's not. I'm not saying it's impossible, but most people I know, you need help overcoming it. And then it becomes a black thing because black folk, we don't like therapy.
We don't like therapy.
We don't like therapy.
We keep things in house.
We talk about that at work all the time, man. Keep our business. That's our business.
So you and God.
But you laugh at what people say stuff like that. So those things you need help with. Those things you just don't sit down and just okay, I'm gonna make a decision today that is not going to be like that. It just doesn't work like that. So those things. Now I'm not gonna say it's not impossible to break, but some of them are gonna take a lot of work.
Yeah. And I think something that was key that kind of stands out is like it certainly takes having solid people around you, just people that you can talk to through those things, or people that may even like show you that wow, like you might need to do something different.
Your inner circle does matter.
Yeah.
And your inner circle definitely matters.
And I think that's actually what hinders people a lot of times. Is the people that your environment, the people that you hang around, the people that you spend a large majority of time with. If nobody's like questioning these things or pointing out certain things or even just showing you a different way or better way of doing things, then like why?
Sometimes if I was doing a class one and somebody asked me, and they, okay, what's some of the things? First thing, you probably need to change your friends you hang around. You do. You can.
But I knew him since middle school.
Yeah, but that's fine. But that's the problem. You're not in middle school no more. Bro, you grown.
You know what's funny?
That's the problem.
But that's...
And if you're still doing the same thing for the same reason with guys in middle school, that's the problem.
But I think that is... that might even be bigger than just our community. I think a lot of people like that. It's like they think that you had to stay the same and be with the same group of people the entire time. Like you can't grow. And then when you start growing, they look at you funny. Your
loyalties, and the second thing I would tell people is your loyalties are misplaced. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is you should never be more loyal to somebody else than you are to yourself. You should never be more loyal to somebody else than you are to yourself. You shouldn't. You should always I want the best for myself. You should never be sacrificing the best for yourself, so somebody else can be happy, so somebody else can be at peace. No, because you're not. And if you're in torment, that's not the way you want to live your life. So you should never, ever, ever be more loyal to somebody else than yourself. And you should be loyal. I got folks I'm loyal to, but I'm not going to be loyal to them to the extent when I'm disloyal to myself.
Where it's just like hindering you from growing.
Same thing, but that's being disloyal if you run somebody that's holding you back, and they hold, especially if you want to come with me, we can take this ride. Mm-hmm. But I don't have time to spend a month trying to convince you to come. And that I'm not going to do.
It's funny because, I had to kind of get out of that at a point in time. I kind of was an athlete, still am, you see me. Yeah. But, like, playing basketball, always in the gym, doing sports and stuff like that. That was really my circle and friend group. But then I started to pivot more towards doing, I would say, creative things. Spending my time just kind of reading, researching, doing different. And my circle certainly changed and got smaller, and it was uncomfortable in a sense because it was like, man, I didn't feel like I could relate to some of the people that I generally felt like I grew up with, or I just felt like, man, like am I an outsider now? Like, you know what I mean?
But
Like,
see, that's how we look at it, right?
outsider.
I posted something the other day, and it said I used to walk into a room, and wonder if I belong. Now I walk into the room, and I wonder if they belong with me. It's a whole different ball game. It's a whole different ball game. That's not cocky. That's not arrogant. That's the way I think now. I'm not walking in now saying, "Man, do they fit in what I'm trying to do?" Is the question I ask myself now. And I think you have to begin to think differently. You can't want something so bad for somebody else more than they want it because they're never going to get it. And that's the problem. If I'm sitting here and I want it for you, and you not want to go get it, that's the problem. Because the first time something happened, well, I didn't want it anyway. You wanted that more than I did. So folk got to be hungry and thirsty for different things. That's part of it, And sometimes you got to look at your family and say, "Yo, that's a generational curse. I'm not going to go there." Maybe drinking and cussing and all that stuff. I'm not going to become that person. So it's like I had a good friend of ours. He went away for a while. He came back, and he wanted to pick up right where we left off at. Pepsis and cheesesteaks. Well, dude, we're not 16 anymore.
Whoa.
We're not 16 anymore. I can't just hang out and do something. I can't just go out and do. Yeah, we used to run a couple courts of basketball, man, a couple games and do that. And my point is, I grew up in a place called Stokely Schoolyard, and that's my project. My project is the next book I'm writing about where I grew up at. I give you the perfect example. We all got exposed to the same thing in that schoolyard: the tenacity, the competitiveness, man, stick-to-itiveness, man, the toughness. We all got that. We all had our old heads had the same conversations with us about making better choices, not doing what they're doing, not getting caught up here. We all heard the same thing. It was a bunch of us.
Yeah, but your parents was different.
Nah, but this ain't had nothing to do with parents. This is because sometimes the stuff you learn outside, like you learn stuff outside this house. Don't act like you didn't. So I'm just saying. And they had some of them had parents just like I did. The difference is what do you do with the information? That's the problem. What do you do with the information? So some people still got hooked on drugs, even though they had living examples of what happens to them. Some people still want to be tough, so they end up getting shot, getting killed, or they end up going to jail, or they end up being underachieved.
But my foundation was good, even though I've learned things outside of the house. But
it's not. It's about who influences you. That's the problem. We think, and I do this in my parenting group. Just because you're a parent don't mean you're the one that's influencing your kids. That's the problem.
But you taught me not to be a follower.
We walking around here like I'm dad and I'm you. No, you got to spend time with your kids. You got to invest in your kids. You got to lead your kids by example, so you can be the influencer.
So that's actually a question that I was going to ask was about like generational curses and that. Like, definitely, maybe you could chime in too. Is that do you think that's a conversation that needs to be had, like in terms of like with your family, whether that's talking to your mom, your dad?
Well, look, we got a problem.
Do you think that's something that people need to? I mean, I don't think anybody else talking about it. There, we get it. I can see it on here. Maybe that's just him.
Yeah, I just want to make sure you say you don't have sound.
But
I would say, yes, that is a conversation that needs to be had because a lot of people don't even realize that they do have these generational curses, or their family are in certain situations because of certain circumstances. Most people don't even realize that it's tough to look at your family, look at yourself, and say, we have this issue that needs to be corrected. That's probably one of the hardest things to do with humanity.
Yes. I think that's an excellent point that you brought up. It's certainly tough to hold a mirror up to yourself and look and be like, man, that's an issue. We need to change that.
Mm-hmm.
Like nobody wants to kind of feel like they like what they're doing is wrong or what they're doing isn't necessarily something that is beneficial to themselves or their family. So
it's easier to blame the man or blame civil rights or all this other different things. Like it's easy to blame that instead of just blaming yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think I don't know if you walked in on that part or came in afterwards, but when I was talking about kind of segregation and slavery and where we talk about what else is it? Another hot topic that they always talk about.
Police brutality.
Yes, police brutality, or just critical race theory.
Yeah,
like that. Those things, and people kind of limit ourselves and just put ourselves in this box of like, well, I can't do this because this, or I can't do this because of these outside factors or influences. And sometimes I think we willingly accept or put ourselves in this box of having generational curses. Um, so I don't know. It's an odd thing, because I do feel like they can be broken, but I also feel like it's a mentality shift and change that not everybody is willing to kind of participate in
And
or
that's
want to be
another
part
thing.
of.
That's
We
another
got
thing.
audience.
Like you said, it's like
It's him.
it's like you don't know how many people want to take that extra step, want to put in the work to be better or to break that generational curse.
Mhm.
Because you could think you have a generational curse, but then you could have a mother, a father, a brother that's like, "What are you talking about?" Da-da-da. They can see a total opposite. So that's another struggle. Different points of views.
But who said life is supposed to be easy? And I want to
Everybody.
and I mean,
Did you see Instagram?
there's nothing you can get in this world that's not it's not take work. I think we're born one or two people. We're born a lion or a gazelle. And this is the difference. The gazelle gets up, says, "Yo, I gotta survive today. I gotta run just fast enough to not get caught by this lion." The lion gets up and says, "I'm about to eat.
I'm gonna eat."
I'm about to eat." And so there's a difference. And I think people who get up and saying, "I'm just surviving," you're not gonna break the because it's okay. Because you're just getting by. People who get up and say, "I gotta eat," they're gonna put the work in. They're going to figure out, what I want is not what I want, and what I'm trying to accomplish isn't add up with what I'm putting into it. They'll figure that out.
Yeah, I think a lot
So
of
I
people-
hear all the stuff you're saying, and I think there's legitimate. But at some point, you can't be 40 years old talking about what your daddy did when you were 2, and that's the excuse why you got 5 families out here. That's the excuse why why you doing all this crazy stuff. At some point, you got 38 years to break that cycle.
Yeah, but again, I think that kind of fits into the point that we're saying is that people very easily just can look to put the blame somewhere else without just acknowledging, like, all right, well, this is what I can do to change these things. They just accept it, like, this is my life, this is how my life is supposed to be because of these circumstances. And I think we need to kind of be better, as a community, just maybe even having conversations about generational curses and how we can kind of break some of those in an instance or sense. I'll say just kind of, again, social media, I always talk about that. I think that kind of makes it hard. I think it makes it hard to break some of the generational curses that we're aware of and that we've been talking about. Because we were talking about the sense of people just being followers. That's all you see online. And people just making excuses for this and that, and just kind of handicapping ourselves or putting ourselves in a box.
And that might be one of the worst things. Is like you could find someone that could agree with some nonsense from all over the world at this point nowadays.
That's actually a good point.
Yeah, but
It's like you could really find somebody to agree with anything that's said and put out there. It could be
they will
ridiculous.
roll with your delusions and everything, and encourage a lot of that stuff.
Encourage it, and that's actually a good point.
There's not enough people who are willing to sit down and let me not say not enough people. Not enough people are willing to allow other people to tell you the truth.
Yeah,
bring back bullying.
Bring back bullying. But I feel what he's saying though too. It's really, man, it's a lot of people out here who will feed the delusion. Like they'll make up excuses and reasons for the situation that you're in, and then they won't give you solutions or how to get out of that situation. It's just, those are your circumstances. Oh man, well that's the way it's supposed to be for you. Like, whoa, yeah, that happened to you and your family. Oh man, that's supposed to happen to you because that's just the way it is. That's life. And I think people don't even look at it in the sense of like, man, 1, this is a generational curse. 2, we can break this or change this cycle. And I think that kind of what you said, man, online, you can really find anybody to agree with you or give you some sympathy. Or I think that's another thing too. Sometimes you see people don't break the curses because they want the sympathy. They want attention. Right. They want the sympathy. They want people, oh, woe is me. So I think that makes it hard. Makes it hard for individuals to kind of look past what's around them and see something bigger and greater and aspire to get, outside of whatever their generational curse may be.
But I think, I mean, and I hear you, and I think all that's great. I do. I think all that's great. But the one thing about human beings that make us different from animals is our ability to obtain information and process it.
Not all of us.
No, we have the ability. Whether we choose to do it or not is a different thing. But we all have the. No, you born with the ability. It's not you. Now, what you do with it after you're born is up to you. But we're born with the ability to do those things. This is how we learn how to walk. It's how we learn how to talk. It's how we learn to do basic things. Because we have the ability to process stuff. That's how you learn your name. When somebody says Devin, you processing that. Okay, this person's called Devin. That must be my name. You do. However, we do get to a certain point where I don't know what it is. I guess some of us turn off that ability, but we still have the ability. And at some point, you got to realize, like, yo, I can't want a Mercedes-Benz lifestyle, but I don't have a high school diploma. So I'm barely working a day. I'm dead with. Yeah, but at some point, you got to figure it out. And some people never do. I'm not saying it, but then and I hate to sound cruel. That's on them because the world gives you examples of what you need to do. Not just if I'm just sitting there and listening to I tell people
we need to spend more time online together.
But that's the problem. Online is not the world. There's a lot of people online, but that's the problem because we're being educated.
It's a microcosm of the world.
But that's the problem. Less time needs to be spent online. People need to start trying to figure out what I need to do, and stop looking online. That's the problem. You never figure out who you are by being online all the time because you spend half your time trying to keep up with somebody that ain't even real.
I think all right, so just realistically, I hear you say, like, stay offline, don't be online. But
no, I didn't say stay offline. There has to be a healthy balance. The line, online, social media should not be setting the standard for your life. That's what I'm saying. You can go on social media. I'm not, but it should not be setting the standard for your life.
It's just deep rooted in our society.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but it's still wrong.
People use TikTok like Google.
But that's still the problem, though. It's like back in the day when you would see something with your own eyes, and somebody would say, "Man, I saw on Action News they said this. I saw it. Oh, but that ain't what they see on the news. I saw." No, I was there. I saw it. So. At some point, we have to say enough is enough, and I agree with you.
But I guess I'm looking at it from people's behaviors, though. Like,
yeah, but that's why. No, but I understand. But what I'm saying is that's why they got to get offline. It is impacting their behaviors. That's why you got to get off of it.
I'm talking about the people who are posting themselves doing like crazy.
But they're still online. They're doing it because they get their kicks offline. They're doing it because people watch and they feel important. Because I'm putting up here that I'm somebody, and you're not. And that's why people got to get offline. I tell kids all the time, and that time you put being online, you should be reading books, how to get to where you're trying to get to. Maybe you can't afford to go to college, but you can read books. You can put yourself in a position to be an entrepreneur. All that time you spend online watching these phony rappers and all this crazy stuff, put it to work. Do something, read a book. Hang out with people who are trying to get to where you're trying to go to. You can't hang out with people who are not going when you're going and expect to get there because the load will be too heavy.
Yeah, and I feel like I understand what you're saying about getting offline and limiting your time. But I just thinking from, I guess, the perspective of even maybe those kids. Like, yeah, they probably hear you in that class, like, or in that session, like, yeah, you're right. And then right after that ends, they right back over there because their friend is sending them a video. I didn't say stay offline. Limit your time.
Yeah, and some kids do get it. Some kids come back and say, you're absolutely right, and some don't. I don't expect everybody to get it, but that still doesn't stop you from delivering a message. But you can't, if you're being educated by something that's not real, you're not being educated, you're being fooled. You use the word, you're delusional.
What do you mean by not real?
Because it's not real. The stuff, all that stuff they see on ain't real. Man, half the people lying, faking, come on, man. A lot of it's not real. So you being educated about something, it's like politics. I look at some of the stuff that I hear in politics, and I have people repeat, dude, are you really paying attention to what's happening right now? No, because they heard some dude get on TV who they respect or got some initials behind his name, and they think it's real, and it's not. It's not. It's a good soundbite. Or they'll cut a soundbite out of what somebody says on both sides, Republican and Democrat, and they'll play the soundbite. Oh, that's what they said. That's what they said. And then when you hear the whole thing, oh, now I get the context in which they said that. So that's what I meant by not real. It's it's the same thing when you see commercials, man. I use this when I'm talking to the kids, man. Back in the day, Billy D. Williams in the Coke 45 commercial. Billy Williams, man, was just starting. Come on, man. And you see the women in that commercial. Ain't no women like that hanging in no bars. Flat stomachs, built, they got white teeth and everything, no disrespect. But when you go into people that frequent a bar, that's not what you get.
Townies.
Yeah, but people see that thinking, and Billy D. Williams, I come on, you think he was really buying Coke 45? I doubt that very seriously.
Probably spit it out right
but it was an image that people, but it was an image that people aspired to get to. And they thought, I may not be him, but if I drink this, I can be like him. How many people put Jordan sneakers and they suck? They get the sneakers, the whole outfit, get on the court and they can't play because they aspire to be something that they're not, and somebody sold them an image. It happens all the time. It's called advertising and marketing.
Recently, where just kind of, I think it might have been like the 50s or 60s, where in order to get women to smoke cigarettes, because initially it was something that was not considered feminine, they started a whole movement or campaign where just saying real women smoke cigarettes too. Showing women kind of being in a bar and just lighting up a cigarette and dress nicely, and then that kind of influenced women to start buying cigarettes. But to that point of just the influences that are out there that kind of guide people to make certain decisions, that's never changed. That's always been here. It's been TV. Now it's social media.
Magazines.
I just feel like it's just easier now to kind of to guide people's thoughts and feelings, and again, it makes them. In this case, where we're talking about just generational curses or being stuck there, it's very hard to escape. It's very hard to escape. Before, we were talking about your block and your community and that being your circle. I mean, I think social media does that in a sense too. It gives you a different community, access to a larger community, but you still see a lot of the same stuff. So if you see people that are kind of stuck in a certain area or part of their life, and they're telling you that there's no way to get out of it, why would I expect anything different or get better? The news for sure says the same things like that. It's tough to get. Well, black people do this, black people do that, and we see and hear it all the time. And I think it really kind of, I don't know, in a way, gets people to be stuck in that mindset and mentality that you can't change anything. You can't do it.
But see, again, it's a choice. Like I said, that's is not a thing of chance. It's a thing of choice. You made a choice. How you made the choice and the information you had to make the choice may be different, but you made a choice. And people have to choose. I want to try to do better. So if I want to try to do better, like for myself, I did research.
How do they know the choices that they're making?
I didn't sit back. Pardon me?
I mean, how do they know the choices they're making?
You make a choice every day. You make a choice to get out of bed. You make a choice to take a shower.
Good or bad, or the choice.
Because you see the results.
And we're talking about
generational. Because you see the results.
What do you mean if you see the results?
If you don't go to school and you got a job you hate, you complain because you ain't making enough money, and your kid turns around and does the same thing, you see that. You don't need somebody to come to you and point it out. You see it being duplicated. You see that being lived out in front of you.
And maybe I'm talking from the kid's perspective.
If you keep choosing a bad partner and you keep making a choice for the same characteristics or the same qualities, you see that. Now, you may try to deny it and say it's not you, but you do. And I'm not saying every kid can break it, but kids, and this is why it's important that we talked about it, that you're outside influence, that you're in a circle. Because I do agree sometimes parents paint a picture and kids, no parent can purposely do anything wrong to kids unless kids figure it out. I do agree with that. But at some point as a kid, just like I did, growing up in North Philly, I knew I wanted more. Thank God I had a different set of parents, but I knew I wanted more. I love my neighbor, but I didn't want to wake up to gunshots or about somebody ripping my car off in front of my house. Or when they cook next door, I'm smelling it in my house because that's how thin the walls were. It was an argument next door. It was like I had surround sound.
Well, there's some people who think that is what his life is supposed to be.
Yeah, but then when you get out, when you go to work and you go different places, you talk to different people. That's not life. That's your life.
It's people that work in their community and they just around the same nonsense.
Chris, is impossible not to get exposed to it. And I'm not saying for somebody to come get you, but with TV and social, it's impossible not to get a glimpse that it's the outside world. Now, you make a choice.
Point, you said it's fake, so they probably look at it like that.
But you make a choice.
Not obtainable.
But you still make a choice. You still choose not to try. I don't care what your reason is. Your reason may be in your mind legit, but you choose not to try. It's a choice.
It's a choice not to try what, like
It's
just
to try to
you
do
don't-
something different, to
you
try to
don't
be better.
know.
You make a choice.
But what if you don't know?
You know when you're hungry and you ain't got enough to eat. You know that. You know when you got to.
You know what? And they think that's an expectation. And I'm supposed to get on food stamps, and like that's
that's idiotic. Because you know that is a better life than that. You know everybody in North Philly ain't on food stamps. Everybody in North Philly ain't. So there's people in your own neighborhood who aspire to be better. May not just be a rocket scientist, but they aspire to be better. So you are exposed to some people, so then you make a choice. And I don't know, I can't sit here and say why they make choices. I'm not getting on them for the choices they make, because as long as you can live with the choices you make, that's cool. Yeah. That's cool. But back to your point, you can't be blaming everybody else because of choices you made. You choose not to get a high school diploma, so it's not slavery. You choose not to get a high school diploma. You know, you committed the crime, you got a record, you made that choice. Now you got to do it, and so now you got to work hard to overcome it. That has nothing to do with somebody else. Sometimes you got to be responsible for the choices you make. That's all I'm saying. Whether good, bad, or indifferent. You can't say when I make a good choice, hey, it's all me, I want to celebrate. Then when you make a bad choice, oh, that's Devin's fault.
I think the point I'm making is some people don't know the choices or the choices that they select. They think that's their only option. Like I've seen plenty of times where people are like, man, I do this because I gotta eat. I gotta survive. There's plenty of other ways to survive and eat, but that's all they know.
We don't have sound on Facebook. So
that's all they know. We almost at the end now, so it's like, but that's really all they know is those things from their surroundings.
Yeah, but you see, then that's you, and that's what's wrong with society. Because just like you, now we make excuses for them.
I'm not making excuses.
We sit back and say, okay, well, they don't. At some point, you know there's a different way to live, and you make a choice. You can, to your point, accept it and say I'm cool with it, and that's your choice. But you made a choice. Either way, you made a choice. You may say I'm cool with not having enough to eat. I'm cool with all that, and yeah, that's your choice. That's okay. But you still made a choice. Or you may say, well, you know what? I know there's a world out there. I'm going to try. I'm going to see what's out there. I'm going to see what I can, what I can do differently.
Yeah, I guess my point is I really do believe people are products of their environment. And I think that's also kind of sometimes...
To a certain extent. To a certain extent. So how you explain people that's born in the same environment and some succeed and some don't?
What are the percentages of that?
It's higher than you think. I got a bunch of us is born in the same environment, and we turned out to be all right.
You talk a bunch of like you and your friends. I'm talking about like the greater population.
But I'm talking to see that's we assume, and I don't know the exact answer, but I can go by the people I know that we all grew up in similar, and some of us made different choices, and some of us didn't. Mm-hmm. And just ones who made different choices made it out, and some didn't. Same environment. I just talked about Stokely Schoolyard. That, yeah, you get it in different ways, but it's what you do with the information. And again, it comes down to a choice. There's some who, they just tune out the world, man.
And time is different.
And I'm not gonna try to make it. Being successful and have enough to eat ain't no care what time it is. I don't care if it's 1950, 1960, 1970, 2023. When you poor.
But you can acknowledge and say that, like the hood that you used to live in is certainly different now, like compared to your time. And
but what they got to do with receiving information. What the hood is different. So what does that do with the information?
Kids don't even listen to authority or respect adults.
Some don't. Some don't. But that hasn't changed in my generation. It was some. Some don't. And I'm not knocking it. The numbers probably higher now. I get all that. But then you still made a choice. You made a choice not to listen to people. That's still your choice. Mm-hmm. You still made a choice.
Yeah.
If you come to me and says, yo, I got 7 keys. If you do these 7 keys, man, you're going to be rich. And I choose not to do it, and Devin does and he's rich, I made a choice. It ain't your fault. I made a choice not to do it.
True.
I made a choice to believe you or not believe you. So we make choices every day.
Yes, we do.
And part of it is trying to get people to think about the choices they're making.
And I think that's where, I'm a little conflicted and swaying back and forth on these choices, because it's like, people don't know what choices to make other than sometimes what they've been influenced by, what's around them.
See, that
Some things are survival.
everything we talk
Really
about
like
right.
the choices they have.
Everything we talk about right now is the problem. That everything I say, we just keep making excuses instead of saying, "Okay, we're going to start holding folk accountable."
I'm not making
At
this.
some point
I think
in time,
that's
you
the
gotta
reality,
say-
and we need more people. That's why we having the conversation
But-
for people to talk about it.
But you keep saying it. You keep saying this, and that's what's wrong with us now because somebody gives us an excuse and we rest on the excuse instead of saying, "Okay, it's human nature," and I don't know where we lose it at. I don't know where we lose it at, but we do. It's human nature to want to be successful, and then at some point we lose it. It's like I know people in sports.
Everybody.
I know people. Yeah, yes. When you start out young, you born with the will to survive. That's you do. You're born with that. That's an instinct you're born with. You're born with the will to
But
survive.
you talked about people being gazelle and people being lions.
They
So
lose
you're
it
not born-
they lose it later in life. That's what happens. They get to they get to a certain age at some point when they figure I'm going to take this path and not that path. I remember a group of kids I grew up with, man, we were all good in sports. We all had the same mentality, fight. I don't know what happened when we became teenagers. When we became teenagers, they decided to go another path. I don't know where they lost it at. I don't know what influenced them, what convinced them to go a different direction, but they did.
I mean, and I can say from when we was in school, it's like it's definitely you can see a hierarchy there and like who.
But that's my point.
does
We
what
make,
and
but
who's
we
on
make
these
choices.
things.
But if you go back to the way people are born, when you're born, you develop into a gazelle or to a lion. You develop those things. Just like some people get a mentality, I'm going to be poor my whole life, so I'm not even going to try. I hear about Devin and Chris and everybody else, but you know what? For me, it ain't even worth it because it ain't going to work out for me. I have people say that. I ain't never get married, man, because, I know it just ain't going to work out for me. Man, I'm never going to do this because it just ain't going to work out for me. Man, why I'm going to try to play ball somewhere because it just ain't going to work out for me. There's people who do that. And some of it is because, man, why you trying? You ain't going to make it. Yeah, you had it. We all had that story. But we made a choice to do something different. So there's people who know you, never heard me, but they saw you succeed, who probably said, I can do it. There's people who looked at you and succeeded and said, you know what, I still don't think I can do it.
Yeah, I mean, but then I also look at it as like, man, I had great people around me.
Yeah, but you missed the point. The point I was making, there's people who do stuff that I don't necessarily agree with people around, but I see other people doing it. I see other people doing it. My father may not have been telling me this, my mother, but I'm watching. I see somebody else doing it, so I know it can be done. So now I got to make a choice. Do I try? I mean, we don't have sound, but I look at Justin. Justin is trying to become a comedian. And we had a conversation. He was cutting my hair. He was on the show. We talked about it. There's a bunch of people telling him, yo, you make a mistake. Don't do this, man. It ain't going to work out. And, just. Yo, he's grinding.
Mm-hmm.
His father wasn't a comedian. His father he talked about his father had a whole different mindset. His father had a mindset, you go out there and grind. Yo, you do what you got to do to make it was his father's mindset. So at some point, you have to figure out for yourself, and some people never figure it out. I do agree.
That was me and him having that
but at some point, you got to figure it out. So he got to. That's what I meant. You can be influenced by other people other than your parents. We all run into somebody who's making it work. I'm not saying they become your best friend, but we all meet somebody, encounter somebody who's making it work. We do, and then we choose. Am I going to be a lion? Am I going to be a gazelle?
Mm-hmm.
And I know people who work for me the same way. Like, yo, who I may have been with them for a while. Yo, when we got here, man, you on fire. Now you just, this happened, that happened. Yeah, but you let it beat your fire out. So now the very thing that you don't like, you stuck in that place now because you lost your fire. You lost your desire to overcome it. So now you stuck at the place you hate.
Yeah.
And now you pass it on to your kids. Man, I tried it and it didn't work out for me, man. So I don't know. I never said that. What did I tell you? I said, when you got to a certain level, even playing college basketball, you passed me. We used to have that conversation. I ain't say, man, it didn't work out for me. It ain't going to work out for you, man. Don't. No, I encourage y'all to be the best version of you could possibly be. And every parent's not doing it, but you got to break the cycle. This is how we get the cycles. At some point, I got to break the cycles. I want more for my kids. Mm-hmm. At some point, I gotta want more for my kids than to be hustling and grinding, trying to make it. I want to be able to go to my kid's baseball game or to my daughter's ballet. I want to be able to buy something for my kid and not have to rob Peter to pay Paul. At some point, that thirst has to come out. And the problem is, we extinguish it because of what people think.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of factors.
Well, there's a lot
to
of
it,
factors.
and.
Can't believe
I'm probably not a believer that everybody
it's one of our better shows.
everybody has success in them. So,
At some point, they lose it. But it's like kids who play sports. They're real competitive. And then you see them, they stop working. They get older, they stop working. They lose it. I don't know why. I can't explain to them. And I'll go back. There's people I grew up with that I knew were younger, that was better than me in sports, that was smarter than me in school, that I thought was really good. And somewhere along the line, they lost it. Somewhere along the line, they decided to go a different path. I don't know if it got too hard for them. I don't know. But somewhere along the line, they just chose a different path. They had it. It's like people, you're not born, in most cases, there's some rare cases, but most people are not born a drug addict or alcoholic, or they're not born to be homeless. Something happens during the course of life that changes their direction in life. Some decision they made, good or bad, changes the direction of their life. So we're all born with certain innate instincts. We are, and for some reasons, I don't know why. I'd be rich about it. Some people developing, some people don't.
Yeah. So I know we're a little over.
Yeah, and no sound. I don't know what happened.
We'll be able to post this on iHeartRadio, Spotify, YouTube, and all other platforms.
Yeah.
But we'll get the Facebook part figured out here. But like you said, it was a great show. I think great conversation. I think more conversations again. A lot of our topics are like that. Like it's just, I think people don't have these conversations in their family. And I that's partially where it needs to start. Like just having open, honest conversations about, like Devin said, like, man, these are the things that I've done wrong or that I wish I could have done better at and that we need to change it, or like helping to guide you towards making some of those changes. Nobody wants to look at themselves and be like, man, yeah, I'm wrong. I did this wrong. Could have been better. I think that's a big part of the problem too, is just having that self-reflection. I think we need to have a little bit of self-reflection and some open, honest conversations and dialogues within our families, within our community, to really start to kind of break some of these generational curses and things that are occurring within our families. Dev?
Like, follow, subscribe, share, comment. Straight to the point. We definitely want to get this great content out there. So share, if you got any topics y'all want us to discuss, let us know. We're on all platforms.
Well, I just put in the chat line that when I post this, the audio, I'm gonna post it to Facebook.
All right.
So they won't get the visual show, but they'll get the audio. And it'll be on both videos.
Cool.
So
All right.
Another great show.
Thank you guys.
I don't know what happened with our sound.
Have a good night, everybody.
And I will see you later.
Next week, Wednesday. Actually.
Yeah, I was gonna say
I'll be in Mexico.